Hello. Looking here at three different uh, movie soundtracks from the mid to late 90s, from 95, 97, 99, covering a 4 year space. Two of them from the Mortal Kombat franchise and the Matrix. So we'll look at the Matrix first. So, Matrix came out in 1999, the movie. Um, and it was a pretty huge movie. I remember at the time, it I didn't actually see it at the theater. At that time, 1999 was a strange year for me, but personally. But I saw it when it came out on VHS, DVD, home release, and for me, being at that age I think it was quite mind blowing. It was quite like a very revolutionary movie in many senses. But I remember the first, sometimes you see a movie, not often actually, but sometimes you see a movie and it leaves you with like a wow kind of feeling, like it affects you. And Matrix was one of those movies for me, as I'm sure it was for many people. And it's even now, what, 24 years later, and the sequels and everything that's gone subsequently, it had a deep impact on popular culture. Think about even in our language, like the words that we use, like we talk about the Matrix in the sense of like he can see through the Matrix, or the Matrix is coming to get me, or red pill. People talk about that, or different pills. Meaning you've accepted or believed certain things, or often used by absolute fucking degenerates. But nonetheless, it has been kind of it's weaved its way into the popular consciousness so much that it's used in our language without people thinking about the original context of the movies. But anyway, uh, you might think, well, that's a different cover than I remember. Well, you'd be right. The original cover, because I own this new back in about the year 2001, I bought this. It was the movie poster one, where it's Neo standing up and it's got the same characters, Trinity and Morpheus next to him, but it's the full body shot and it's more of a black background. Um, a much more recognizable scene, advertisement, or whatever you call it, marketing poster from the Matrix. So I'm not actually sure which particular release this is and why it has that different cover. And maybe it was just New Zealand had the other one, and maybe different countries had different ones. But the one that I'm talking about is, just quickly, that one. That was the cover on at least the early 2000s release, 1999 release. Um, this was a pretty big soundtrack. This sold a couple of million copies around the world. Actually, more than a couple of million. Might have been up near 5 million or something. But it was pretty big, because the movie was pretty big, and it and went along with that, and just some scenes from the movie there. Whereas some soundtracks have one or two songs that are connected to the movie or used in the movie. A lot of these songs were actually, you could hear them in the movie. Not all of them, but many of them. For example, just looking through. Oh, Shiza, I caught it. Don't worry. Looking at the track listing. So, "Rock Is Dead" by Marilyn Manson. That was used on the end credits. "Spy Break" by Propeller Pits. That was when they're walking through the lobby at the gunfight. Trinity and Neo. "Ministry," I'm not sure. "Club to Death." That's used somewhere in the movie. So that's maybe the most recognizable song from Matrix. It's got that kind of, starts off with strings, and then it's got this descending bass line, do do do, and there's a drum beat over the top of it. Beat Feet Beat Meet Beat Manifesto, Lunatic Car, Prodigy, Minefields. That's used in the club when he meets Trinity for the first time. As is Dragula by the remix by Rob Zombie. Don't think the Deftones song is used in the movie at all. "Wake Up," that's used right at the end when Matrix, when Neo is talking on the payphone. saying, "I know what's happening. I'm awake now." Whatever he's saying, I can't remember. But it's a pretty good collection of songs. Um, I like that Marilyn Manson song. I like the bass line in it. I like the Rob D Club to Death song. I like the Prodigy song Minefields. I like Deftones. I like that Hive song Ultrasonic Sound. I like Du Hast, although I probably heard that song too many times in my life now that I kind of don't like it anymore. I like Wake Up by Rage Against the Machine. They all, what would you say? All those songs kind of share a certain feeling that match the movie. The movie is kind of, how would we describe it? It kind of almost, I don't know. You throw out words and then you realize they're not the right words. I was going to say like cyberpunk, but it's not cyberpunk. But it's kind of that late 90s kind of futuristic tech, and the music they would often associate that with is kind of a mixture of rock and dance music or electronic music together, which I think this album kind of captures, a mixture of rock music, some just straight ahead rock songs like Marilyn Manson, Deftones, and Rammstein, and some more remix type rock songs, and then some more electronic music that uses rock influences like Prodigy. But yeah, it's a pretty good soundtrack, and like I said, it was very successful. It went to chart position. It went number 5 in New Zealand. Even in the US, I think it did quite well on the Billboard charts. It went, let's have a look, 7 on the Billboard charts, 2 in Norway. That market's very important. Germany 4, Australia 5. So, it was getting top 10 around the world, which there was a period where in the 90s where soundtracks could do that pretty regularly. Anyway, that's that. So 1.5 million copies in the US, 1 million in Europe. So probably did about 5 million around the world, I would guess. Doesn't actually say exactly. Anyway, okay, the other two. How do these movies relate to The Matrix? Well, they don't really. They are in a kind of similar genre, as in the movie-wise. Well, these are more kind of fantasy action, whereas Matrix is much more sci-fi action, isn't it? But similar time period at least, and somewhat similar music. Not exactly the same, but somewhat similar. So there's been 3 Mortal Kombat movies. I actually thought there was more than that, but apparently it's just these 2, and then that one that was released like 2 years ago, which I haven't actually seen yet. Now, Mortal Kombat is a video game, if you don't know. Came out in the early 90s. Around that time, there was a period in the early 90s where those fighting games were really popular, especially Street Fighter 2, and then those kind of Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Challenger, all those different kinds. And then Mortal Kombat was a little bit after that, maybe a year or 2 after that. And when I was growing up, those kind of arcade games that you'd find, that would often be in like dairies, well, like convenience stores, I guess you'd call them, or in like other kind of arcades, like in Tenpin bowling centers or movie theaters, you'd find these arcade games. And they were really big because this was a time before home consoles. Like, of course, people had NES and Sega Master System and things like that, but to play like these high level games, you needed to go to an arcade to do it. Nowadays, you can have that shit in your home times 1,000 or times 1,000,000. Like, the game hardware is so much advanced. But Mortal Kombat was a pretty big thing when I was a kid. So they released a movie in '95, so a few years after its peak. But then there was Mortal Kombat 2 and 3 games, so they were still doing well as well. And I remember going to the cinema to see this movie, and I loved this movie. I was probably the perfect age for it. I would have been 95. I was about 14-ish, I think, 14. So for a 14-year-old, the Mortal Kombat movie was the height of cinema, In retrospect, I've gone back and read some reviews, and it got pretty badly thrashed by critics, but that's to be expected. All of these, I didn't actually say about the Matrix, all of these were 50 cents. Now you can see this has got some kind of brown spotting on that. Might just need a wipe. Not much on the way of liner notes. Just so the kind of music used for both of these Mortal Kombat soundtracks is quite specific. Like the Matrix, it uses this kind of mixture of electronic dance music and rock, but a particular kind of rock. This kind of industrial rock that had a period there in this time, in the mid to late 90s. Bands like KMFDM and I guess some of those other ones I got on there, like was it Bile, System Machine Gun. Some of these bands were not big at all. KMFDM got a bit more fame than those other ones. Gravity Kills, that one as well. If we think about industrial music, often people think about industrial and they just say, oh, Nine Inch Nails. But Nine Inch Nails actually avoided the most kind of the things that you most associate with industrial music, that kind of very hard, relentless, or unrelenting guitars, but a very kind of like a wall of sound type guitars, and like then the drum machine sound, and again, not great at describing this. Nine Inch Nails actually didn't use that much. They use it in a few of their things, like something like Reptile. They have that. It's got a very industrial sound, like it sounds like you're literally in a factory or something. But a lot of their songs were much more based in traditional rock, I guess, and then other things like more like kind of almost classical. Like Trent Reznor was a classically trained pianist, and he used things that weren't typically industrial, actually. So industrial, this was more, I guess, actual industrial music mixed together with electronic music. So the theme, which is done by the Immortals, which is the that one, and then the Utah Saints also did a version of that as well. Mortal Kombat, that screaming. Have you seen that kid on YouTube who does that? He does like an a cappella version of it. He literally is going. What else we got on here? That Fear Factory song, Zero Signal. That's a great song. I like that. GZR, if you don't know, that was Geezer Butler's band. Geezer Butler started his own kind of side project from Black Sabbath. He was in and out of Black Sabbath, wasn't he? Especially in this time period in the 90s. I don't know what was going on. But he kind of used different musicians. And he actually used, in this song, The Invisible, he uses Burton C. Bell from Fear Factory. So Burton's twice on this soundtrack. To be honest, everything I've heard from GZR, never really heard anything that I think I've wanted to listen to more than once. Quite, I don't know, ham-fisted type music, I'd call it. Maybe that's unfair. Maybe I haven't listened to enough of it, but yeah. What else is good on here? Typo Negative, always great. That Gravity Kills song, Goodbye. I don't know why they use the demo version. I remember I played this once to someone, and they thought the song was so bad they laughed at it. They I don't know. It's got this kind of cheesy chorus that's very Euro sounding. I don't know where Gravity Kills are from. I think they're American, but for some reason I don't know. Actually, I'm talking myself into a corner here. Anyway, that was the first movie. Then the second movie came out in 97. They did a sequel. And this movie is widely considered to be one of the worst movies ever released by a major studio. Maybe that's unfair. I don't know. I've never actually seen it. I know they used a different Sonya Blade character in the original Mortal Kombat. Who played Sonya Blade? Let's have a look just quickly. It wasn't. So in the second movie, it was Sandra Hess. Okay, so I don't know who Sandra Hess is. But Bridget Wilson played her in this first movie. And in that time period, as a young 14-year-old, as I said, she was like the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen in my life. Uh, I didn't know this, she went on to marry Pete Sampras, the tennis player. So they're married at the moment. So, she was Miss Teen USA 1990. So then she went on. She was also in Billy Madison. Remember Adam Sandler's girlfriend, his character's girlfriend? That's her, if you don't know. And what else? She was also in Nixon, Higher Learning, Last Action Hero. Since she hasn't made anything since 2008, so I guess she kind of gave away. That's about when she married Pete Sampras. So maybe he said The Wedding Planner, House on Haunted Hill. But yeah, she is. I had a huge crush on her. She was like my ideal of the perfect woman. Bridget Wilson, Sonia Blade's character. So I don't know. Yeah, who played her in the second movie? It said Sandra Hess, but I've never, and there's nothing here about her. Oh, yes, there is. Sorry, she's a Swiss actress, and she has had a very small career and has not made anything since 2008 either. Should be in her mid-50s now. So, okay. Anyway, this album, the second album, is very similar in the style of music. Again, we got the Immortals. Again, we got KMFDM. We got Megadeth this time. Almost Honest. Remember that one from the late 90s? Rammstein, Engel. Much better song than Du Hast, I reckon. Sirius, Face to Face. A lot of these you probably don't recognize unless you're into that kind of industrial music. It's hard to describe it. It's like, imagine like kind of tinny sounding wall of guitars, some guy screaming over it, but not very metalish. It doesn't have enough low end to be metal, I find, industrial. George S. Clinton, not George Clinton, the funk guy. This is from Parliament. This is George Clinton, the movie soundtrack composer. So he composed some of the music for this. He has also done a lot of other movies as well. So yeah, 3 soundtracks there, all 50 cents each. Probably picked up over the last two years-ish, I'd say. I've owned that one before, new, and I owned this one before secondhand. So this is my second-hand copy of this. This one I've never owned. But if you like that kind of movie, that kind of music, they do it well, and it's quite a consistent. It's not all over the place, especially the Mortal Kombat soundtracks. I will give them that. As much as some of the music I don't like on them, they do stick well to a theme of music across both soundtracks, and they don't waver from that, and it kind of creates quite a good sonic world. Even though the movies themselves don't seem to really operate within that sonic world, they seem completely different from the music being offered there. All right, guys, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much.